Hi everybody, welcome to Everything Dog Training podcast with me, John McGuigan, at Glasgow Dog Trainer and Behaviour Consultant. Another Q&A today. This will be the second one that we've done, so I think it will be this time last week. The last one was released. Loads of questions to go through, so I'll go through them as best as I can. If you have any questions on dog training, please email me, info@glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk. You can also contact me through Facebook, Instagram and YouTube as well. YouTube's not the best way to get a hold of me. I do look at it, but usually I'll put my videos up there, and I tend to leave them be. I check back in for comments and stuff like that. But you can message me through Instagram and Facebook as well, or you can email me. I also do these occasional posts on Facebook. Keep a lookout for them, where I ask directly for questions for the podcast. If you're listening to this on iTunes, can you leave me a review, please? A 5-star review, obviously, because it's the best dog training podcast available. I'm joking, okay, but a 5-star review does help, because it means that the algorithm will then pick it up more people will hear about it, and more people will be perhaps changed from where they are to a more positive approach, or get better on their positive approach to dog training. So yeah, if you could do that for me, I'd be much obliged. Also, this isn't me asking for praise. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, you keep coming back to it, then there is something good in what you're listening to. Can you give me some feedback? Just ping me an email, let me know what you're enjoying. I've got some feedback from the podcast so far, but it's always good to get feedback, so that I know how to improve it for yourselves. A number of different people listen to this podcast. The starting point is that we've got an interest in our dog's welfare to some degree or other, and then an interest in training beyond that, and then you'll get first time dog people up to experienced dog trainers like myself. So I still listen to dog training podcasts, despite the fact I've been doing it, and it's because I'm continuing to learn. So there's some good information out there as well as mine, but thank you for spending your time with me, whatever you're doing. Alright, so I'm going to continue with Heidi's question. So Heidi asked a second question. When to reward or treat, so reinforce her dog after they're quick to startle and react with a bark. So she said, when we're out doing long line training, I try to reward with treats when the dog disengages from the stimulus that causes them to bark. So we'll suggest it's another dog in this case, but the dog seems to think that the bark is what is paying off with the reward. I must have the timing wrong. Potentially, Heidi. Okay, so there's a few things there. Where we start and where we end up are two different things. So I'll just tell you briefly a dog that I worked with. It was a workshop in Vancouver, 2018 I think. I'd gone out to do a workshop in Vancouver, and the client had come, or the person had come with her dog. So she was a relatively small woman with a big, one of the giant breed dogs, a big boy dog. And we did some of the practical when we went outside. We walked round, and when the dog, I'm going to call him a Newfoundland, okay, that's not what he was, okay, just trying to be discreet with people. So the Newfie then saw the other dog, the stooge dog that we were using, and then started barking. Now, his barking sounded like whoa, 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 okay. The lead was relatively slack, and then he turned round and looked at his human after he barked. And I know I kind of guessed exactly what had gone on in that moment. So what I asked the woman, the owner of the dog, guardian of the dog, has that bark changed? And she said that the bark had significantly changed from when she first started. So what had happened was the bark sounded considerably more aggressive. So, oh, whoa, 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 okay, with the dog lunging at the end of the lead when she started training. And she was now getting this whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so a much more relaxed sounding off bark, and the dog immediately turned back and looked at her. Okay, now what I guess had happened was she's done the right thing by saying disengage from the dog, and I will reinforce you with food. Okay, that had been working very, very well, but the barking still remained. Now what we've got is we need to look at the function of the behaviour. So I talked about this before. I will come back to it over and over and over again, because the more that we understand the function of our dog's behaviour and our own behaviour, the better we are able to deal with their issues and to help them to have a more enriched and fulfilled and settled life. So the function of your behaviour of listening to this podcast is either entertainment, knowledge, passing the time, relief of boredom, a whole bunch of other things. Okay. So what happened at the start was the function of the Newfoundland's behaviour was to get the dogs to go away from him. Okay. I don't want you in my space. I'm going to bark aggressively and lunge in the end of the leads, because I've learned that that's the best behaviour for me, for the dog, to get you away from me. Okay, so that's from a dog's point of view. Which started to reinforce disengagement. The dog had then started to settle down, and the function of the behaviour had then changed from repelling the other dog or creating space to getting the treats. Okay, so that's an interesting distinction, and we can guess that by the quality of the bark. Okay, so we've gone from so I'll talk about the qualities in a second, or sorry, in fact, we'll talk about it just now. Okay, so the quality is how intense it is. Okay, how intense is that behaviour? How frequent is the behaviour? So frequency is over a 5-second period. How many barks do we get? Okay, so if you look at a little dog when they go whoa, okay, there's a number of barks there. In that 2-second blast that I gave you there could be 10 barks. And if we slowed it down and did a sonogram of it, you could probably see the up and down. Okay, sounds like that. So if we slowed it down, we could see the number of barks. So we've got the frequency. As it gets better, okay, as the behaviour becomes less, we might get less barks. So it might woo, 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 woo. Okay, and you can see there we've now got 4 or 5 barks in that period. Okay, so that's the frequency. Frequency is number of barks in a specific time frame. Then you've got the duration of the bark itself, and the duration of the bark is how long does the bark last for. Does it last for 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, however long. Okay, so frequency, duration, intensity. One of the other things that I'll look at is how quickly the dog can recover to some sort of base level. Okay, so the dog is doing well normally, sees another dog, kicks off, and then comes back to some sort of stasis or homeostasis. Okay, so we've got our recovery. A few things going on there. So what we got from the dog was a relatively quick recovery. Okay, a less intense bark, less duration in the barking, and less frequency in the barking. So that those all things there, it looks as if we're turning down the intensity, the volume, okay, the amount of barking and the amount of emotional reaction that we've got. So I said to the woman, the dog's now barking for treats. Okay, now what had happened was the woman had only ever, dog looks at another dog and barks, comes back to her and gets a treat, and that's what the protocol should use from the start. But things change. Okay, so think about it when you go to the gym. You go to the gym and you lift 20 kilos. Okay, so 44 pounds or whatever that is. Okay, 20 kilos, 44 pounds. If you're still lifting 20 kilos for the same lift, the same number of repetitions and the same number of sets a year later, you're not pushing yourself, or there's something wrong with your training program. Okay, so where we start is not where we can progress to. And this woman had been doing the same thing over and over and over again, just because she didn't know what to do next. Okay, so how we resolved that? We took a break from the other dog. We moved back, and as she saw the other dog, I gently held her hand, which I'm going to talk to about in a second. The dog barked, Newfoundland barked at the other dog. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, big barks, but relatively less intense, and turned round and looked at her. And I said to her, shrug your shoulders and have a kind of, with humour, oh, well, so what, pal? Look on your face, okay? So kind of, well, really? You know, but with humour and kindness, okay? Now the dog then kind of gave us a goofy look and expression as if, well, I don't understand what happened now. And then paused, and then we reinforced the dog, okay? Reinforced the quiet behaviour. So the dog looked at the other dog, barked, turned round and looked at mum. Nothing happened. We paused, and we then reinforced the quietness. We then continued to reinforce the quiet behaviour, and then we allowed the big fella to look back at the stooge dog, and we looked at the dog without barking. The second he looked at the dog, we said, good boy, and then we reinforced that behaviour again with food. So what we've now started to teach the dog is quiet behaviour around other dogs gets reinforced, and noisy, barking behaviour does not get reinforced with food. What we want to do there is get our timing bang on, okay, so really brush up on our timing. So the second the dog appears before the big fella's got an opportunity to react, we say, good lads, or we mark it with a clicker or a yes, and then we present the food. Okay, so that's how we did that, and we started seeing results quite quickly. Okay, so Heidi, if you take that and that stuff into consideration, and that should give you some help with it. Now, the reason why I held the woman's hand was because the woman had built up this pattern of see the dog, so she sees the dog, her dog reacts, and she immediately reaches for the treat bag. So her timing was so good that of reaching for the treat bag when the big fella barked, that she was she was effectively, okay, with great effect, marking the behaviour of barking with her reaching for the treat bag. And I've talked about movement as a marker, as well as using a clicker, a verbal marker, numerous times, which we'll talk about again more than likely, because it's one of my kind of great bugbears of our mechanics on how to deliver reinforcement. So the reason why I gently held her hand was to stop her from reaching for the treat bag, because it becoming a behaviour which was without conscious thought. She'd just done it so many times, she'd reached great fluency in her behaviour. The cue was her dog barking, she reaches for the treat and delivers the food, and her dog stops barking. So that was her feedback loop there. Okay, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If we expect our dogs to be aware of their behaviour, it is only fair that we are aware of our behaviour, which means that we then have to be present. And that comes from watching your dog, being aware of how you're feeling, and be aware of your actions in response. Okay, so hopefully that will give you some ideas there, Heidi. Okay, so Roxanne has said, my dog can be very reactive, and we have 2 dogs that are on our property behind our house. I'm not sure how to help her calm down or stay calm when they're running around. She's often watching them when outside and tries to watch out the windows for them. Okay, that's a hard one. Okay, it's really challenging. Okay, so as best as we can, what I would try and do is visually obstruct as much of her view of the other dogs as possible. And I know that can depend on where you live. So let's see where you are. Okay, so I don't know where you are, Roxanne. So generally in the UK, because we don't have as much, our gardens aren't as big as they are in the US and Australia and places like this, just because of the size of the country. We get smaller gardens, and that when they're fenced off with double slatted wooden fencing, so that's normal, that's fairly normal, or walls or hedges, which you can't really see through. I know in the US, chain link fencing between properties is significantly more popular than it is here. But what I would suggest is we need a visual obstruction from between the 2 gardens. So whether that's putting some trellis up with some sort of plant stuff, or draping something over the fence so that she can't actually see the other dogs, and that will give her some relief from the visual. Okay, we've then got the audible, which we can try and cover in a second. Okay, and then even when she's in the house, and you said she tries to watch out the windows for them, I would be putting, if she was my dog and that was her behaviour, I would be putting a translucent, so the opaque window covering wherever she can see the other dogs out the window, and we just set that up as best as we can. With the translucent window covering, the kind of opaque stuff that you use, that frosted window covering you use for your bathroom windows, it only has to be at the bottom part of the window that the dog can see out. Very often what happens is that we'll put our sofa or couch or a chair at the window, and the dog sits on the back of the couch and looks out the window, And if you've got a dog that lunges and barks at people, barks and runs up and down at the window when people walk past, that's not the best setup. So we want to change the environment first, okay? Working your relaxation protocol, which I'll cover in further episodes, and I'm also putting a course together on it and teaching your dog to settle and relax. And then once the dog is settled and relaxed, we can then start to say, can you settle and relax when you hear the other dog? Okay, so there's a few things there. It's a relatively complicated setup that you need, and I would need more time to go through it with you. But that's a few ideas that will help, and then you start reinforcing lots of the behaviours that you like. Okay, so anytime your dog is settled at all, good girl and pair. Okay, and you just pair with a small treat which you've got kind of planted around your house. Okay, yeah, so that's how I would work on that. Okay. So Tracy, you have asked, how do I stop my ridgeback from accepting someone other than myself or my husband on the end of the lead, holding or walking him? So I take it that's you holding or walking him. He accepts pets and calm greetings from others, but have them try to walk over to him or even just hold him as a canine good sitter in supervised separation, and he jumps all over them. Okay, now from what you're describing there, I take it it's not an aggressive reaction. Okay, I fully get there that so a number of things. Okay, and this is not a criticism of you, Tracy. Okay, it's me, and I don't know enough from what you've described. I maybe need to look at that canine good citizen standard. I would look at why your dog needs to have a supervised separation. Okay, the only thing that I can actually look for that is an absolute necessity for your dog's life is the vet or the vet nurse or the vet tech. Okay, your dog walker. Okay, they're really the only people that I actually need to have supervised separation from you and your dog. Okay, now so that's the first thing. Okay, the next thing that I would look at there is you train your dog to have 4 feet on the floor. Okay, so he's doing well with 4 feet on the floor. You reinforce the 4 feet on the floor, so you teach a good stand, and we can do that with teaching your dog a foot target. So his front feet target a mat. Okay, now you then stand with the dog, and somebody comes and stands next to you, and you reinforce those behaviours of standing with 4 feet on the floor. Okay, you then, once you've got that, you then pass them part of the lead, but you hold part of the lead. Okay, so you're standing in the same place, but you just pass them part of the lead. So they're holding the dog and you're holding the dog. Or you have 2 leads on a dog and you pass one of the leads to them and you hold the other one. Leads. Okay, and you reinforce the dog's behaviour, your dog's behaviour having 4 feet on the floor. Gently start to reduce the amount of tension on your lead. Maybe even let go of it entirely as you get better at it, or work towards unclipping that. But your feet stay where they are. Okay, so the only thing that's changed is we've faded in the proximity of the other person, and we've kept your level of proximity. But what is changing there is the level of lead attachment, if you like. Okay, once he's doing well with that, you then take a step back, and then you step in and reinforce the dog for having 4 feet on the ground. Build some duration. Okay, 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, and so on. And then take 2 steps back, reinforce that. 3 steps back, reinforce that. 4 steps back, and come back in again. Now, if you reinforce that, then the dog's doing well, but the other person can now start reinforcing that. And so the way that you could do that is you step back in and you give the person a treat and they give it to your dog. Okay, now I am assuming here that your dog is not aggressive and he's just excited. Okay, or what he might do is he might be slightly anxious that you're leaving him. But those are the ways that I would start gently teaching him to accept being separate from you. Okay, so hopefully there's some stuff there that can help you. Okay, so Ella has asked, I would like your suggestions based on experience on 2 issues. How do you socialise, and in quotes, an 8-week-old pup, and how do you house train a puppy? Okay, So we'll cover the house training first. Okay, house training is relatively easy. Okay, never reprimand the dog for doing the toilet in the house, ever, ever, ever. Okay, if the dog pees in the house, make sure you clean it properly. What is proper cleaning for urine is saturating the urine stain with biological soap powder solution, scrubbing it, and then cleaning it several times, flushing it several times clear with clean water. Okay, and that's a big effort. Okay, and a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just spray it with some disinfectant or try and mop it up, but the smell remains in the carpet fibres. Okay, after you've puppy trained your dog, then I would suggest a deep clean. Okay, so that all the smell of urine is removed. Biological soap powder destroys the enzymes in urine, whereas lots of the other commercially available ones, or just bleach and stuff, other detergents don't destroy the enzymes. And if the dog can smell the enzymes, they'll continue to pee there potentially. Okay, so that's how to prevent it. Or sorry, that you make sure that it doesn't happen now. Oh, sorry, if it does happen, that's how you clean it up. Okay, your dog is likely to need a toilet after you have after they've fed, slept, played, and had a drink of water. Okay, so after those 4 times, every time take the dog outside and wait with them. When a dog does the toilet, make a big fuss, and it's a gentle fuss. Good girl, lovely sweetheart, that's wonderful, good girl. And then you pay them over and over and over again. Give her time to pee, and then pay her afterwards. Nice, gentle fussing. Okay, so just as I described there. That's lovely, pup, well done. Good, good, okay. That kind of cooing, alright. So when she starts peeing, lovely sweetheart, okay. And the reason why we want it low key is so that when she is peeing, we can give her good feedback while she's peeing. If it starts becoming excited, she might stop peeing and come towards us. Okay, so we want to tell her she's done the right thing, but in a really low key manner. So you've got those 4 times. And then routinely throughout the day. With an 8-week-old pup, I'd take your dog out every hour. Okay, take her to a patch in the grass or patch in your garden where she's allowed to pee. Stand with her in the lead. Wait until she pees. Make a big fuss of her. Okay, and then do something else. So, and it's just a matter of time. Very, very few dogs can't become house trained. Okay. With the right effort, I think that all dogs can become toilet trained exactly the same as every child, every human can learn how to hold their bladder in their bowels. Okay. Socialisation of an 8-week-old pup. We're going to cover socialisation more in a future episode. Alright, so I'm not going to cover it just now, okay, because there's a lot in it, but we're going to cover what proper socialisation is and what it isn't. Okay. I guess the reason why you've put socialise in inverted commas or quotation marks there, Ella, is because lots of people think socialising your dog is taking your dog out and meeting as many people and as many other dogs as possible. That's not what socialisation is. So that's not what it is. It's allowing your dog gradual exposure to the things in their life that they're going to be exposed to, and then building up good patterns around them, which we'll talk in a previous episode. Okay. Right. Joanne, you've asked why would a lovely dog go mental, in brackets, aggressively when visitors leave the house, and how can you help them to keep calm instead? Okay, I don't know why they would. Alright, they just do. They just don't like it. Okay, it maybe disturbs them. I don't know. It's a real conundrum. It'd be interesting what the function of that behaviour is. Is the dog trying to keep the person in the house? And I guess, I mean, that's the question that you've asked. Is the dog settled when the visitors are in, and does it upset them when they leave? Who knows? Okay. How do we keep them calm instead? We train them to settle. Okay. So our relaxation protocol, again. More content on this and a course on this coming out. Okay, so stay tuned for that. It'll probably be September before it's out at the earliest, the time I've got I can get it done. But teaching calm, settled behaviour, and then you build so the person stands up, you reinforce the calm behaviour, they sit back down again. They stand back up and take a step towards the door, you reinforce that. 2 steps towards the door, reinforce that. Okay, and on and on. Okay, that's how we build that up. And the way that we work on this is that you have to have somebody to come in and help you. and you train it, alright, and then the other thing that you do, you've maybe heard me saying before, you train when you can and you manage when you can't. So managing when you can't train is then taking the dog into another room, okay, and then the person leaves. So you just take the dog out of the situation, put them in another room, the person leaves, and you bring the dog out when they've left, okay, alright. So hopefully that helps there. Amanda's asked, how would one handle strangers who disregard your request not to approach? Or you have the, oh don't worry, he's friendly dogs running up to your pup who will have challenges with those interactions. So there's a couple of things there, Amanda, alright. I get that this is different. There's a number of factors going on here, and I'll go through them. Okay, so generally this will be easier for men. Okay, and I without going into the whole social stuff in our system, and I understand that there's lots of aspects of life which are significantly more challenging for women than they are for men, and there's some instances where it's more challenging for a man than a woman, depending on the situation. I'm fully aware that it's significantly easier in most countries in the world to be a man socially than it is for a woman. I totally understand that. Okay, the first thing so this is how I would do it, and then we can see how we can soften this up. I just tell people not to approach, and then I turn around and walk away. Okay, so if somebody wants to come up and approach my dog, I say, can I pet your dog? And I say no, and then I leave. Okay, and it's the second part that's really important. So when we talked about not setting up the scenario where you're then having to get into some sort of discussion with people. So you get I always call them the Dr. Dolittle types, the people who can talk to the animals, right? Yeah, I'm good with dogs. Are you? Well, you're not good with my dog because he's not good with anybody, alright? Those kind of dogs. It's your right not to have people approach you after you've asked them not to, okay? People don't listen. They just don't listen to us, because when we start, I remember I did a video on this on my YouTube channel years ago, and a long time ago, and I put it up and I said, the easy way to, when somebody says, can I pet your dog? And you say no, okay? What was interesting about that video was Patricia McConnell, Dr. Patricia McConnell, picked it up and she shared it, and her comment on it was, the crux of it, or the underlying theme of it was cool, but I could be more polite about it, alright? Now, if you're new to this, and I mention this a lot because I learnt a lot from it. I was a police officer for a long time here, and I get that I had the authority of the state behind me when I was in uniform, okay, but it teaches you how to talk to people with authority, okay? Now, I'm going to qualify a lot of that. When we say, if somebody says to you, can I pet your dog, and you say no, you're not leaving that open. There's no other avenue that they can come in there, okay? And that's why it's seen as being rude or abrupt, okay? If you say, I'd rather you didn't, a lot of the time the person hears from that subconsciously, okay, or unconsciously, I don't really care what you would rather, because what I would rather do is pet your dog. Okay, so because you framed your position in from where you want, okay, you're not taking into account what they want or need. Whereas if you turn around and say no, it's an absolute there. Okay, there's nowhere for them to come back round. The other thing that they do is if you say to them, my dog's in training, okay, or he's doing some training, what can happen there, and I've seen this happen over and over again, is that it opens up the conversation. Oh, what are you training him for? I trained my dog as well. And you now start getting into a conversation with somebody about training, and that takes our eye off our dog and our dog's needs. So I take it, Amanda, you don't want people coming up and petting your dog because your dog doesn't like it. Okay, but we now start getting embroiled in a conversation, these car crash conversations that you can't get out of, and you're further inviting the person socially, despite the fact that that's not what you want or what you need. Okay, so I just flat out say no. The other thing, and you see this with, I don't know, depending on where you are in the world, okay, I think most cities, I think I've experienced it in a lot of places where I've been, you walk down the street and you get people who are trying to sign you up for various charities or different organisations, and what they'll do is they ask you a question. So if you're in a tourist trap, they'll ask where you're from. Have you got a minute? Okay, so if they say, do you have a minute for me? That's a closed question. You can turn around and say, no, I don't, and you can walk on. If they ask, where are you from? Because it's an open question and you're generally smiling at them, what will then happen is that you will answer their question, and now they've got their foot in the door. So it's just sales tactics, these things, okay? So people will ask you, how old is your dog? Okay, that seems like a relatively innocuous question, and you start asking them, you start answering them. My dog is 7 years old. Oh, my dog was 7 years old as well. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's preparing yourself for this. So if I'm walking down this street with my dog doesn't like strangers approaching him, and people turn up and say, he's really handsome, and I say, thanks very much, and I continue to walk on, and they'll say, how old is he? And I have already prepared, I don't mean to be rude, but he doesn't like people approaching him, so we're just going to walk on. Okay, have a nice day, pal. Alright, and I do it in a friendly way, and I keep walking and let them talk to my back. That takes some work. It's okay for me to do it. I'm super comfortable with doing it because I'm really obnoxious socially, or can be sometimes under certain circumstances. But being obnoxious to people is not an issue for me. Okay, being abrupt and rude to people, really, really, really not a problem. I have a problem trying to be friendly to people, which I'm working on and doing better at. Alright. If it's a man approaching a woman and you act like that, then I get it, that's problematic. Okay, so softening that up and just say, no, it's okay, thanks, pal. My dog doesn't like stranger approaching him, so we're just going to go about your day. But thanks very much anyway. And you smile and you walk on. Okay, so those are some suggestions, and these things take practice, and they take practice of kind of malice of forethought. Okay, practice of forethought. So we think about them before we're in that situation, so that we know how to prepare ourselves, or we're preparing ourselves. And then you can see people walking down the street or where you are, and they start approaching you. The other thing to do as well is, as strangers are approaching you, I do this with Logan, is I don't make eye contact with them. I start looking at him as the person is coming down the street towards me. Okay, and I move him away. So all of the social signals that I am throwing out are basically say I'm not open for a social interaction. Okay, so I'm shutting down that even before it happens. So lots of nice body language stuff there. Okay, now the second part of your question is with the don't worry, he's friendly. I get it, it's really, really, really challenging. Okay, usually what I'll do is I continue to walk on. Most dogs are coupled with their owner. Okay, so I just put the lead relatively tight with clients. So shorten it up, so the lead's not tight, but I just keep walking. And then I just go to say to the dog, come on pal, let's go, and we keep walking forward. Okay, now what tends to happen there, and it happens in a lot of cases, very, very, very often, is the incoming dog is coupled with their person, and if we walk away from their person, we start putting pressure on their dog to go back to their owner because we're going too far away from them. So I generally look at where the human is where the human is moving to, and I walk in the opposite direction so that the dog goes back to them. So there's just a few ideas there. If the dog continues to kind of stay with your dog, I turn round and I walk back towards the person with my dog on a shorter lead, and I'll say to them, can you grab a hold of them? Okay, so that's the next thing that I'll do, so hopefully they'll come in, and then the next thing that I'll do, if I have to, is I'll take a hold of their dog while I'm walking back and pass their dog back to them and say, can you stick them on the lead until we walk away? I get it, some people start getting shirty with you because they'll say, don't touch my dog and all these things. It's super, super, super easy to get embroiled in these ego-based conversations about, well, if you had your dog under control, I wouldn't have to do this in the first place, would I? Right? Because you're offended and annoyed by them. But that's not helping your dog, and it's not helping their dog. And this is, I had to work a long time on this. Okay, couple of really good books to think about, and I know Amanda, who's asked the question, I know that because we've chatted a couple of times. Ryan Holiday's books on Stoicism are great about this. The obstacle is the way, and ego is the enemy. There too, and stillness is the key. Okay, so those are 3 great books for us to listen, read, and reflect on our own behaviour, and then apply those reflections to our lives with our dogs. Okay, so stillness, being able to still your head. Ego, not get involved in these car crash conversations with people when we should just be trying to sort out our dog's needs. And the obstacle is the way. What in this can I use in order to get better? Okay. So hopefully there's some stuff there, Amanda, that will help you. Okay. Now see what time we're sitting at. Okay, we're going to do one more. All right. In fact, we're going to go 2 more. Okay. Becky's asked, how much behaviour modification and training can be done? This is an adopt, don't shop training question. Some people believe you can train the behaviour you want in a rescue dog so that you don't have to buy a purebred, known for desired temperament or working dog trait. I've never seen it done. I've had many rescue fosters and worked with positive reinforcement trainers. I refuse to work with any other training types, as I've yet to see how it works too, as I can't get the results I desire. Okay, and there's a couple of things there, right? I'm going to break a few of those things down. So firstly, there's the notion that if you buy a purebred dog for desired temperament or working trait, that's what you're getting. Okay, there's a tendency that that's what you'll get. Okay, so these are genetic tendencies. It's not an absolute. So if I buy a Labrador puppy from a reputable breeder that I know is well tested with dogs of really friendly temperament, that's not a guarantee that the puppy that I adopt will have a friendly temperament. Okay, and it's not a guarantee that if I put that dog in the wrong position early on, they'll learn catastrophically from adverse experiences and become nervous. Okay, so these are their tendencies. So that's the first thing. Okay, the puppies are not blank slates. It's I think it's a commonly held misbelief. Okay, that you get your puppy and you can mould that puppy into anything that you want. I know I mentioned Patricia McConnell earlier in this episode. That she talks about one of, if you don't know who Patricia McConnell is, go and look her up and read her books and stuff. She's truly excellent. So she works in one of the universities in Pennsylvania, and they do a variety of research programs involving dogs. She had bred, as part of the university project, a litter of border collies, and she selected her dogs. So she bred the dogs and selected the dog. This is from memory, so some of the details might be a bit sketchy. And she adopted one of her dogs, and she said that dog was a wreck. So despite all of her knowledge, experience, the fact that she's selected both the mum and the dad, and she's selected the pup, that still throws up some problems. Okay, so that's the first thing. Puppies are not blank slates, despite what we think that they are. Okay. Rescue fosters, having worked with positive reinforcement trainers. Okay, it depends. Okay, I regularly work with dogs that have been adopted and become super cool pet dogs, robust and all the rest of it. Okay, so just the same way as you're getting a puppy doesn't mean it's a blank slate. Getting a dog, rehoming an adult dog doesn't mean that you're getting some sort of head case. Okay. How much training and behaviour modification and training can be done? depends what our expectations are. Okay, so I worked years ago, long time ago. We get lots of dogs from Eastern Europe coming over here, so charities bring them over, and they lots of Romanian dogs, and then from the Balkan states as well. Some from Cyprus and some from Spain as well, but we get lots of these dogs, and the dogs that come in from Romania, a lot of the time are either kept in municipal pounds under really poor conditions, or they have been street dogs who have been captured, and then we bring them in and they live in city apartments and flats, and then people want to take their dogs down the pub because they want a pub dog. Lots of these dogs are not pub dogs. Okay, so I don't have a pub dog. I don't take my dog to the pub. So that's a change in, that's adjusting my expectations of my dog. Not every individual human is capable of doing everything, and it's the same as with our dogs as well. So lots of the time we have to adjust our expectations. Now that's not to say that we just need to say, well, that's who the dog is and I don't try. That's where knowledge and experience comes in through an ethical and compassionate framework. Okay, so it's a big question, how much training and behaviour modification could be done. I think that's an unanswerable question, because where do we get it to and what do we want it to get to? Okay, so could we with that dog so suppress that dog's behaviours with aversive training methods that dog just sits quietly in a corner and never says anything or does anything? Yeah, absolutely, we could brutalise that dog into submission, but we would never do that. Okay, it's like I always think that no matter how much encouragement you give, and say to your child, if you get this, if you go to football practice, you'll get this afterwards. If the child doesn't like football and doesn't have an aptitude for it and doesn't like the rough and tumble, then that's maybe not the best game or the best sport for them. And it really doesn't matter how much teaching and training that you do. Dog just doesn't like it. Child just doesn't like it. I know I've mentioned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu before. I think it was in, or it's coming up, whichever one it is. Okay, I just recorded one and I talked a little bit about that. BJJ is wrestling on the ground with sweaty individuals, mainly men, in damp clothing, sweating on you. Okay, full body weight on top of you, dripping sweat. Just so think about this for a second. This is what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. A grown man putting their entire body weight on you, dripping sweat into your, sometimes, this isn't the objective, okay, these are unhappy byproducts of the sport, dripping sweat into your face. I've had sweat in my eyes from another person into my mouth. Okay, you're sitting with somebody's groin or armpit in your mouth, not mouth, okay, face. Somebody's putting lots of pressure on you. The uniform we wear is this big heavy cotton uniform called the gi or the kimono, and it becomes saturated in sweat really, really quickly, and that's sitting on your face too. Okay, now if you're sitting there listening to this, you might be absolutely appalled by that and think that is the worst thing in the world, that I would never do that. Okay, don't like the pressure, don't like the proximity, don't like the sweat, don't like the pain and discomfort. Jiu-Jitsu is not for you. Okay, and it doesn't matter how much encouragement, training, behaviour modification I do, that might never change and probably won't ever change. Okay, round pegs for round holes, but sometimes they just need brushed round the edge in order to fit through that hole. Okay, last one. Fiona's asked, how do I get my dog to have duration on a boundary without self-releasing? Okay, so I think you're saying from that question there is we're teaching the dog a down stay, okay, or a sit stay, and the dog is getting up without being released on to a verbal cue. Every likelihood there, in fact, I'll say with certainty, and I say a few things with certainty, you are lumping, Fiona. Okay, so what's happened? Lumping and splitting is, going back to a weightlifting example, okay, I put a 20 kilo weight plate on either side of the barbell. Okay, so the barbell weighs 20 kilos on either side, it's now 60 kilos. Okay, so I pick that up. My next increment, I now put another 10 kilos each side. Okay, so I'm now up to 80 kilos and I've jumped from 60 to 80. Then I put another 10 kilos on each side, and I'm now up to 100 kilos. So going from the 60, I can go 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, and I can work up like that. So the splitting is going from the 60, 61, 62, 63. Lumping is going from 60, 80, 100. Okay, or 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So lumping is big chunks, and splitting is the smaller chunks of behaviour. Okay, so for what your duration on a marker, okay, or not crossing the boundary or remaining on the mat, you've got the duration itself, how much time am I asking you to spend on that mat, okay. Then I've got how far I am from the dog, okay, so am I 2 steps back, 4 steps back, 10 steps back. Then we've got the level of distraction or difficulty that's going along around it. So what else is going on? Is there people going by in the street? Is there a car going past? A child with a scooter? Somebody playing with a ball? Another dog? So all of those things now make it more challenging for the dog to remain on the mat. Okay, so we're going to look at duration because that's the question that you've asked. 3Ds, just distance, duration, distraction, and we train them separately. Going back to the weightlifting analogy, some days you'll go into the gym and you'll be feeling really, really good, and you can start lumping. So you can put heavier plates on. We can go up in higher increments. Other days, either when I'm reaching the limit of what I can do, is I will split. Okay, so I'll play in a smaller range of weights. So for duration, if you're having difficulty, so we're going to use 30 seconds as some arbitrary figure. So if your dog can do 30 seconds but can't do any more of that, what I would do is I would start playing in the range of 15 to 20 seconds. So we play, the dog remains on their mat for 15 seconds, we reinforce that, and then we release them. Okay, 15 seconds, 18 seconds, 20 seconds, okay, and we release them each time. So that would be your first set, so 15, 18 and 20. Okay, your next set might be 18, 20 and 22. Okay, so we do 3 of them, give the dog a break. The next set might be 15, 18 and 22. So we're going lighter and heavier, lighter and heavier. And the lighter ones are the heavier ones are just easing in towards our boundary. Okay, this is how we train weights, and how we train weights well and become really strong really quickly. Alright, and I know because I've done it. Right, the 15-second ones are easy compared to the 22-second ones. Okay, and the 22-second ones are not so heavy that the dog can't do them. Okay, once we build up some strength in the behaviour there, instead of our rep range going from 15 to 22 seconds, it might go from 18 to 25 seconds, but you're building lots of practice in that range. Okay, and then we ease that up from 22 to 30. Okay, so if you're doing 5 trials in a set, you might do 22, 24, 27, 25 and then a 30. So you're not escalating each time, you're up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay, and if you practice like that, and that then that's about our discipline, you practice like that, you should beat that duration marker, or reach that duration marker rather, without much problem. Another few things to talk about there. That's given that all the other variables are the same. Okay, and that's not always the case. So sometimes you might be asking your dog to do a 15-second one which they smash, and then you do and the next one you're asking for an 18-second one which you think might not be that difficult, but another dog runs past or barks or they hear something or a bird flies past. So the conditions change there. So if you're working on this, I would work on it in a relatively sterile environment as you can. Okay, and lastly on that, and I know this is the nuance that I keep talking about, if you're doing 3 sets of 5 trials, okay, so that would be 15 reps altogether, and you do that over the case of 20 minutes or something like that. At the start of your training session, your dog is relatively fresh, okay, at the end of the training session they've done a lot of work. Okay, so I was working with a dog today where it's a border collie, and towards the end of the session, this is why I asked for when we're playing the focus game, which I've linked in this this podcast in the show notes. We asked the dog towards the end of the session to lie down, and we only ever ask once, and 4 times in a row she didn't do it. Okay, and that's a clear indicator that she needs a break. She'd done a lot of work, super easy behaviour, and she couldn't do it because she was starting to lose concentration because a young dog and we'd done a lot of work. Okay, so even though that you might be in a sterile environment, your first session is different from your second, because your first session you've done no work, your second session you've done 1 set, and in your third set you've done 2 sets. Okay, so you've got all of these things, and this is observing your dog, videoing your training sessions, and yeah, practicing all that cool stuff. Okay, so hopefully that's helped, guys. I'll try and get some more of these done. It's been, I enjoy doing them. Okay, I enjoy the Q&As. I know it's not about me. Okay, it's not about me, but if I enjoy them, then it means I can put more enthusiasm and give clearer answers. So hope this has been useful. I'll catch you next time. Much love to you. 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 Much love to you.